recognizing a trauma bond. We're taught that love should feel like a safe harbor, a place of comfort and understanding. But what happens when the person you believe you can't live without is also the one who is, piece by piece, quietly dismantling your spirit? This isn't just a difficult relationship, it's often something much deeper, something we call a trauma bond. It's a powerful, confusing, and often painful connection that can make leaving feel impossible, even when every fiber of your being screams for escape. This isn't the kind of heartbreak that heals with time and a new distraction. This is a wound that festers, an invisible chain that binds you to a cycle of hope and despair. It's that feeling of being addicted to someone, even when their presence brings more pain than peace. You might feel trapped in a fog of confusion, constantly questioning yourself, your sanity, and whether what you're experiencing is even real. You might feel an intense loyalty to someone who consistently lets you down, hurts you, or makes you feel small. If any of this sounds familiar, if you feel like you're caught in an emotional rip current, pulled under by a love that feels more like a battle for survival, then please, stay with me. You need to hear this. This isn't about blame, it's about understanding. It's about shining a light on these patterns so we can begin to find our way back to ourselves, to a love that nurtures instead of depletes. You're not alone in this, and there is a path forward. Let's explore this together. The first sign, chasing chaos, not chemistry, and it's a big one, is this undeniable addiction to the emotional highs and lows. It's when you find yourself confusing chaos with genuine chemistry, turmoil with passion. Think about it. Does your relationship swing wildly between moments of almost euphoric connection, intense passion, and declarations of undying love, only to plummet into devastating arguments, silent treatments, or heartbreaking betrayals? This isn't the gentle ebb and flow of a healthy partnership. This is a storm, and you're riding the waves, desperate for the next peak. You tell yourself that the highs are worth the lows. Those moments of intense connection, often born from making up after a terrible fight, feel so incredibly potent, so real. They become the drug you crave, the proof you cling to that it's not all bad. But if we're truly honest with ourselves, we're exhausted, aren't we? We're constantly on edge, bracing for the next downturn, or desperately trying to recreate the conditions that brought about the last good period. It's a relentless pursuit of emotional safety that, in this dynamic, never truly lasts. This pattern creates a powerful biochemical bond in our brains. The intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable switching between reward and punishment, pleasure and pain, is incredibly addictive. It's the same mechanism that keeps people gambling, hoping for that next win. You're not weak for feeling hooked, you're human, and your brain is responding to a very specific, very powerful form of conditioning. The intensity feels like deep love, but it's often the intensity of a battle, not the steady warmth of a secure attachment. It's crucial to understand that this cycle isn't a sign of a passionate or fiery love, it's a hallmark of a trauma bond. The drama, the makeups, the apologies, the grand gestures after a blow-up, they all serve to deepen the enmeshment, making it harder and harder to see the relationship for what it is. You might even find yourself bored or unfulfilled in calmer, more stable interactions because your system has become accustomed to and even craves that high level of stimulation, that constant state of alert. The truth is, real love, the kind that sustains and nurtures, doesn't thrive on this kind of volatility. The second sign, why leaving feels impossible. Another incredibly telling sign is this profound sense of powerlessness, this feeling that you simply cannot walk away, even when a part of you desperately wants to. How many times have you packed that mental or even physical bag? You've rehearsed the words, imagined the freedom, maybe even taken a few tentative steps towards the door. You've told yourself, this is it, I can't do this anymore. You've felt that surge of resolve, that flicker of hope for something different, something healthier. But then, something happens. Every single time you get close to breaking free, they sense it. They might break down in tears, promising this time will be different, that they'll change, that they can't live without you. Or perhaps they become incredibly vulnerable, sharing their own pain in a way that pulls at your heartstrings. Suddenly, your resolve crumbles under the weight of their distress, or your own deeply ingrained need to be a caregiver, a fixer. It's an almost magnetic pull back into the familiar, painful dance. And then there's the guilt. Oh, the unbearable, crushing guilt. You start to feel responsible for their pain, for their potential loneliness, for the hurt your leaving might cause them. This happens even if they have hurt you countless times, even if they've shown little regard for your feelings. It's a twisted empathy where their emotional well-being somehow becomes your primary responsibility, eclipsing your own needs, your own suffering. You start to believe that your pain is a necessary sacrifice for their comfort or stability. This isn't a reflection of your weakness or a lack of willpower. The third sign, the stories we tell ourselves, excuses that mask the truth. You know, this third sign is something we all do to some extent when we're trying to make sense of difficult situations. But in a trauma bond, it becomes a survival mechanism. You constantly find yourself justifying their hurtful behavior and minimizing the pain it causes you. You become an expert apologist, not just to others but more importantly, to yourself. You craft elaborate narratives to explain away the anger, the neglect, the criticism, or the control. They're not always like that, you might tell a concerned friend or whisper to yourself in the dark. They're just under a lot of stress from work. Or, they had a really tough childhood, so they don't know how to express love differently. Or, it was my fault, I pushed their buttons. We search for reasons, for external factors, for anything that can make their actions seem less intentional, less about who they are, and more about what they're going through. It's a way to maintain hope, to keep the good version of them alive in our minds. You might find yourself meticulously curating the stories you share with others, highlighting the good times and glossing over, or completely omitting the bad. When friends or family express concern, you might become defensive, fiercely protecting the image of your partner and the relationship. You're not just defending them, you're defending your own choices, your own investment, the very foundation of the reality you've constructed to cope. Admitting the truth to others feels like admitting failure, or worse, admitting you've allowed yourself to be mistreated. This internal defense attorney works overtime. For their explosive anger, you find an excuse in their supposed passion, or their inability to handle frustration. For the days or weeks of cold silence and emotional withdrawal, you might blame their need for space or their introverted nature, rather than seeing it as a form of punishment or control. The fourth sign, burning bright, burning out, when intensity isn't intimacy. Sign number 4 is a dangerous misconception. You mistake intensity for love, drama for depth. We're often sold a version of love in movies and songs that's all about fireworks, dramatic declarations, and overcoming huge obstacles. And yes, love can be passionate, but in a trauma bond, this intensity is often the byproduct of instability, conflict, and the desperate need for validation, rather than genuine, secure connection. Think about the emotional landscape of your relationship. Is it characterized by frequent high-stakes drama? Do arguments escalate quickly, filled with accusations, tears, and sometimes even threats of leaving, only to be followed by equally intense periods of making up, passionate reconciliations, and fervent promises? This cycle of conflict and repair can feel incredibly addictive, as we discussed earlier. The relief and closeness you feel after a major fight can be mistaken for profound love and connection. But is it truly intimacy, or is it the shared experience of surviving a storm you both helped create? You might find yourself confusing possessiveness with deep caring, believing that their jealousy is a sign of how much they value you, how afraid they are to lose you. In reality, possessiveness often stems from insecurity and a need for control, not from a healthy, trusting love. You might interpret their constant need for reassurance, their monitoring of your whereabouts or your interactions, as a sign of their devotion, when it's actually eroding your autonomy and trust. The intensity of their focus on you can feel flattering, but it can also be suffocating. The pain itself can become a twisted validation. You might subconsciously believe that if it hurts this much, if it causes this much turmoil, it'd be real, it'd be significant. And finally, the fifth sign, the fading reflection, losing yourself in the shadow of the bond. And perhaps the most heartbreaking is that you simply don't recognize yourself anymore. When you look in the mirror, or when you have a quiet moment to reflect, the person staring back at you feels like a stranger, a faded version of who you once were, or who you know you could be. That spark, that light that used to shine from within you feels dimmed, or perhaps even extinguished. Think about the things that used to bring you joy, the hobbies you loved, the friends you cherished, the dreams you pursued. Have they slowly faded into the background, overshadowed by the demands and dramas of this relationship? Perhaps your laughter isn't as frequent or as free as it once was. Maybe the confidence you once carried, that sense of self-assurance, has been chipped away, replaced by self-doubt and a constant questioning of your own perceptions and feelings. The peace you once knew feels like a distant memory. You might find yourself constantly walking on eggshells, carefully choosing your words, modifying your behavior, all to avoid triggering a negative reaction from your partner. You shrink yourself, making yourself smaller and smaller, to fit into the confined space that the relationship allows. You hide your true feelings, your disappointments, your needs, because expressing them has too often led to conflict, dismissal, or further pain. This self-silencing is a profound act of self-betrayal, done in the name of preserving a connection that is, in reality, eroding your very essence. There are moments, perhaps late at night or when you're alone, when the question echoes in your mind, who am I now? What has happened to me? This isn't just about feeling sad or going through a rough patch. This is a fundamental shift in your sense of self, a deep disconnect from your core identity. You've become so enmeshed with the other person, so focused on their moods, their needs, their reactions, that your own identity has become blurred, lost in the shadow of the bond. This loss of self is one of the most insidious and damaging aspects of a trauma bond. Closing thoughts. Stepping into the light, reclaiming your story. Recognizing these signs is the first brave step. Trauma bonds can feel so much like love, especially when they're all we've known, or when they tap into our deepest unmet needs and unhealed wounds, but they are fundamentally built on a foundation of fear, intermittent reinforcement, control, and the echoes of past pain, not on the mutual respect, trust, and safety that characterize healthy, nurturing love. Breaking free, I won't lie, it won't be easy. It will likely be one of the hardest things you ever do, but staying, truly staying, will keep you tethered to a cycle that keeps you broken, that keeps you from the fullness of who you are. The beautiful, powerful truth is this: you don't need to be fixed. You were never broken to begin with, even if the bond made you feel that way. What you need, what you deserve, is to be free. Free to rediscover yourself, free to heal, free to build a life where love doesn't come with an undercurrent of anxiety or a constant need to prove your worth. You deserve a love that feels like coming home, not like walking into a storm. A love that doesn't hurt, that doesn't diminish, that doesn't demand you sacrifice your soul. If any of this, any part of this resonated deep within you, please know you're not crazy. You're not overreacting or being too sensitive. You are waking up. Please like and subscribe for more content.